Thanks. Good afternoon, everybody. I see some familiar names and if not faces, at least names. So you folks know who I am. What we're going to do today is Giuseppe Leone, who is the leading expert and trainer on virtual mediation, particularly Zoom, not only here in Hawaii, but before that on eBay and others. So many, many years of experience, both doing it and training people in it. Is going to walk us through a really short presentation on what it includes and what it looks like. I'm going to set the stage just real quickly here. We know that before the pandemic, our judges were carrying 500 plus cases over on their civil caseload. It's now not quite double that, but it's well over 800. In addition to that, the criminal cases for trials are way backlogged. Domestic violence is backlogged. Those have priority over civil cases. So for civil attorneys looking for jury trials, don't hold your breath. As an alternative, what has grown is virtual mediation and virtual arbitrations as well, but particularly virtual mediation. Zoom is the leading platform for it. There are others, Blue Jeans, Legaler is coming along quickly with some good stuff. WebEx sometimes, but GoToMeeting, others. So I'm going to hand it over to Giuseppe. The need is huge. The resource is really valuable and very low cost. The convenience of bringing people online, the reduced cost, no office, no parking, no travel, no nothing, is pretty evident. Giuseppe, take it away.
Thank you, Chuck. And good afternoon, all of you. Thank you for inviting me to this presentation. And as you know, the title of this presentation is How Virtual Mediation Can Work for You. So this is what we're going to talk about today. First, I would like to give you an overview of what virtual mediation or online mediation means. Then I'm going to tell you, if you're interested in learning more, how you can go about it, where you can find additional training. And then if there will be a Q&A session, of course, and time permitting, there will be a demonstration. So this is going to be a non-technical and hopefully interactive session. I don't have any PowerPoint, so I just have taken some notes. Okay. So let's start by clarifying a couple of things. Virtual mediation. So let's begin with virtual. We can call it online. I think they're considered synonymous. So when we say virtual mediation, we are saying that there is a mediation going on, and the participants are using a computer, a tablet, a smartphone, or a regular landline phone, and they are all connected with some software. Now, the software we're using today is called Zoom. However, my presentation is not about Zoom. So it's about online mediation in general. Okay. So whether an online mediation is run with Zoom or with Microsoft Teams or with Cisco WebEx or any other software, I think it doesn't really matter as far as our discussion is concerned. So this is about virtual and online. When we talk about mediation, the concept of mediation is the same, whether it's online or in person, which means that there is a neutral person, a mediator, who helps the parties and their attorneys to present, their different perspectives, to share information, to have some experts if necessary, and to see if all participants can work out a settlement which obviously is acceptable to everybody and better than their alternatives, which most of the time is going to court. Okay. So nothing new really about the concept of mediation. Now, I would like to make clear that from my experience, people who hire us, and by us I mean mediators, or who hire you as an attorney, they hire us because of our skills, professional skills, litigation skills, or mediation skills, not for our technical skills. So I think it's safe to say that our clients do not really care much about the online aspect. All they care is that we do our best to help them reach a settlement that they think is fair and obviously better than their alternatives. Okay. So it should be clear by now, by what I've already said, that from my experience, the success of online mediation depends 95% on the mediator's skills and experience, not on the technology. Needless to say that it takes years for someone to become a good mediator, to decide who should sit at the mediation table, how these people are going to talk with each other, whether in a joint session or in private session, okay? Whether the parties want to be able to talk to each other or they prefer to have, different session from beginning to end. So those are the skills that a mediator typically learns through training for a lot of practice, and those skills take years. On the contrary, to learn how the technology works, how the online aspect works, from my experience, it takes only a few hours or days, depending on the professional or on your familiarity with computer. And I'll say more about this because I think is important. So when we say virtual mediation, online mediation, I think that the focus should be on the mediation aspect. Having said that, it is important for you to know how the online part works so that it works as smoothly as possible. Now, let's see who participates in an online mediation. Besides the mediator, your clients, you, attorneys, there may be some experts, okay. And finally, there could be a different figure, which I've called driver or host or assistant. For example, in this case, Brian is our host, right? Why am I talking about this new role as a driver, host or assistant? Because I think that if it is true that the success of online mediation depends on the mediator skills and experience, I think it's a good idea for an experienced mediator to ask himself or herself, am I interested, in doing everything by myself, in inviting parties, clicking here, clicking there, or given my experience, I would rather have someone else doing the clicking for me. So depending on your familiarity with software, your interest in software, And depending whether you have the time to learn more, you could do everything from beginning to end, right? So you could set up an online mediation, and we'll talk more about this, and do everything by yourself. But if you say, you know what, I'm a good attorney, I'm not in computer, so I'd rather have someone else in my law firm, an admin staff or an assistant who takes care of the clicking. So if someone named Paul is the assistant, and they say, Paul, let me join, the breakout room of party number 1, or breakout room of party number 2, and so on. So again, I think it's better to be frank with yourself and ask it a simple question. Am I interested in learning how everything works? Or I'd rather let someone else deal with it. Because there is really no need for a mediator, to try to do everything. And because if you know how to do it, it can be fun. If you don't know how to do it, it's better if someone else does it for you. In any event, the parties do not care. The parties expect that when they participate in a law mediation, everything goes smoothly. Okay, so we know what can go wrong. We or someone else on our behalf, we know what could go wrong. We have a plan B, because the more confident we are that everything is going to work out fine, the more relaxed or less tense, let's say, the parties and their attorneys are. Okay. So let's see what are the typical tasks that someone has to perform in order to set up and run an online mediation. Okay. And again, whether you carry out those tasks or someone else, doesn't matter. I take for granted, and I'm speaking from the mediator's perspective, okay? So the mediator, it's up to the mediator to decide, of course, who should participate in a mediation and who has the authority to make a decision. The mediator should decide also whether it makes sense to have a joint meeting with all parties, and then have private meetings with each party, or for any reason, because perhaps the parties prefer so, it would be better to do what is called shuttle diplomacy, so that each party is in their own room and the mediator goes back and forth between one room and the other. Okay. So there are some basic decisions that are up to the mediator to make. Now, so once it has been decided when an online mediation is going to take place, someone has to send out the invitations, right? And I think it's better if the invitations are as simple as possible. For example, when I invite someone, I say, our online mediation will take place Tuesday, noon, Hawaii time. If you have used Zoom before, click this link. If you haven't used Zoom before, then I'll tell them to do something else in order to test their audio and video settings before the online mediation begins. Now, during my training, I also recommend to do an additional test besides the audio and video. And the test is about lighting. Because when you are online, it is important that the parties can see each other very clearly. For example, we have here Catherine. Catherine Nor's lighting is excellent because you can see clearly. Well, probably I embarrassed her because she's gone away. That was not my intention. Anyway, Catherine, I hope I haven't embarrassed you. It was supposed to be a compliment. Okay. All right. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so the lighting is important. Okay, so the lighting is important, and so the tests that we are talking about before the online mediation begins are about audio, being able to hear each other well, video, everybody can see each other well, okay, lighting, okay, and in my practice, I use that test, which is typically run a couple of days before the online mediation begins, also to establish a rapport with the parties, with the participants. Because I take for granted, number one, that mediation is very personal. So from my experience, having a rapport, personal rapport with each mediation participant is important. The second assumption that I make is that mediation is per se stressing because the outcome mediation is uncertain, is not clear what's going to happen at the end. And the fact that a mediation is done online can add an additional layer of anxiety. So during the pre-mediation test, I take the opportunity to talk to each participant so they can see me, I can see them, they can get used to my voice, I can get used to them. And the purpose of doing that is to let people relax. Well, relax probably is too strong of a word, not become tense, so that they know that everything is going to work out fine. Okay. So these are tasks that I recommend to be performed before the online mediation begins. For example, another task that is worth testing with, especially with attorneys, is that if, for example, at one point, one attorney will write up the settlement agreement, it is worth testing in advance whether that person, whether that attorney knows how to, obviously not to write up the settlement agreement, but how to share it and how to annotate it. So the whole point is that all these tasks should be thought about in advance, and someone should do something about it so that the mediation goes as smoothly as possible. Another key factor in online mediation is having a plan B, so that all participants know that if for any reason there is something that goes wrong, a computer outage, an internet outage, their computer freezes and so on, they don't need to worry. I give them a number to call, and I also have their number. And depending on the situation, we schedule the online mediation to continue later on, or we schedule another day and time. So having a plan B is essential. So when you or someone on your behalf sends out an invitation, okay, at the end, you say, please confirm that the above instructions are clear, and if you need any assistance, call this number and we will help you. Okay. All this before the online mediation. begins. Let's start talking about the first document that is usually used in online mediation, which is called agreement to mediate. Now, the agreement to mediate online is exactly the same agreement to mediate in person, with two additional clauses. And clause number one is that the parties agree that only the people who signed the agreement to mediate can participate in a mediation. And clause number two is that all participants pledge not to audio or video record any portion of the online mediation. So someone, the mediator or someone else, has to make sure that all participants have signed this agreement to mediate. Whether they sign it electronically with a digital signature software or with a fax, I don't think it really matters. But it is important to understand that only the people who have signed the agreement participate in mediation, and no audio video recording, which is something that the mediator reminds the parties in the mediator's opening statement. Can you confirm that there is nobody else in the room with you? Can you confirm that you understand, agree that there will be no audio video recording? Okay, fine. Okay, then depending on the mediator, how the mediator has decided to manage the case, there may be a joint session, okay, like this one. This could be an example of joint session. And during the first mediation session, typically the mediator asks the party how they prefer to be called. And that's one way of showing respect. Okay, for example, if I ask John Barkey, how would you like me to call you? And he says, oh, if you don't mind, call me professor, I can rename professor. If someone is a doctor, it's a good start, showing respect. If someone says, I'm a judge, fine, judge. Or I am a lieutenant. That's fine. Then the mediator asks, is this the first time that you participate in mediation? Yes, first time. Okay, let me explain how everything works. So the mediator explain what's going to happen. It's going to explain that after the joint session, like this one, each party will have the opportunity to have private meetings among themselves. So party one can meet with attorney number one, party two can meet with attorney number two, and so on. Typically, in many cases, the parties' attorneys also like the opportunity to have the opportunity to talk among themselves, especially in the negotiation stage. And therefore, it is important for the mediator to provide this opportunity to have a room, attorneys only, so that the attorneys can talk among themselves. The mediator can also anticipate the fact that he or she, mediator, may want to have a private chat with one of the participants. For example, I can say, Chuck, I think I would like to have a private word with you. So the mediator can create a private room just for Chuck. By the same token, one participant, any participant, can say to the mediator, Mr. or Mrs. Mediator, if you don't mind, I would like to have a private word with you. Can we do that? Sure. So as you can see, there are some decisions for the mediator to make beforehand about logistics. do I need a main room? Typically, you do a main room, right? And how many rooms do I need? One for party one, the other for party two, the other attorneys only, and the other is a private room. Now, when parties are in a private room with their attorneys, needless to say that they are the only ones who can communicate inside the room. So a room is private, is confidential, okay? And they can share information, okay? So they can talk, they can see each other, they can share documents and so on. Since the rooms are private, during, for example, my training, I explain how the mediator can knock on the door to ask permission before joining any room. So I would say, for example, if Chuck is in a room with his client, okay, I can say, I can call Chuck and say, Chuck, this is Giuseppe. Is it okay if I join you now? And he can say, yeah, okay, sure, go ahead. Or he can say, no, now, come back in 2 minutes. Okay. So online, the mediator can do anything that otherwise will do in person, which is going from one room or the other and moving people around from one room to another. But again, that is not something that you need to do. If you want, you can learn how to do it. If you say, no, it's too complicated for me, no problem. Just have someone else do it for you, okay? During an online mediation, typically the parties also want to share information. There's information means pictures, it can be documents, contracts, it can be proposals, it can be videos. And if we have enough time today, I will show you a demonstration. So the mediator has another decision to make. Should I, mediator, allow attorneys to share information which is on their computer so that they take care of the sharing? Or will it be easier and better if I ask all participants to send me in advance what they may want to share, and I, mediator, take care of the sharing so that everything is easier to manage? Okay. Because why is that? Because if you want to, if the mediator decides to allow an attorney or more attorneys to share information, the mediator should make sure that they know how to do it, right? Because it is important not only to share information, but preferably to annotate that information, which is something that I will show you later on, so that it is easier for all participants to understand where they should look, where should they pay attention to. Okay. So there is information sharing, information annotation, and at the end, if there is an agreement, someone has to write up the settlement agreement. It could be the mediator, it could be one of you, the one attorney. Okay. It depends. There's something that has to be decided together, and well, the last decision is how the parties are going to sign their settlement agreement. Okay, and for example, they could do it with a digital signature software. Okay, or they could do it the old-fashioned way, but by fax. I don't know, but from my experience, how people sign their settlement agreement is less important than being able to reach an agreement and making sure that they believe that that agreement is going to work. Okay. So this is pretty much a list of all tasks that have to be performed from beginning to end By the time we invite people, we test their connection, we have joint meeting, private meetings, information sharing, and annotation, and writing up the settlement agreement. Now, Brian, is it okay if I can ask if there are some questions so far? If you have questions, do you know, send me a message for the chat? Or if you like, probably you can unmute yourself and ask me a question, which is the old-fashioned way people ask questions to each other. But you have to unmute yourself, otherwise I cannot hear you. Brian, do you know if the, yeah, Stanley now is unmuted. I don't know whether he has a question.
There are no questions in the chat, but Stanley has raised his hand, so.
Stanley, you have a question for me?
I've had trouble, yeah, I have a question. I've had trouble trying to set up the rooms, the individual breakout rooms for either private caucus or lawyer meetings or whichever. And I've downloaded some of the parts of Zoom that allowed me, it said it allowed me to add the rooms, but it seemed to take over everything on my computer. I couldn't operate anything from email on. I mean, just nothing. It just took over. So I had to delete it.
Okay, let me.
So do you have any advice?
Yes, I do. Breakout rooms is one of the most critical features and most powerful feature, I say, of Zoom, because it is important that each party can talk with their attorney privately and so on. Okay, now there are. Let me give you a couple of suggestions. I know that there are plenty of video tutorials on YouTube about breakout rooms, but those video tutorials are made by people who are computer experts. During my training, I not only explain why breakout rooms are important, I also provide video tutorials which show step by step what you, Stanley, or someone else has to click in order to manage breakout rooms. When I say manage, I mean creating them, rename them, assign people to them, moving people around, closing the rooms, join them, and so on. But I don't want to get too technical about this. Another video tutorial that I send to the mediators who take my training is how they can practice by themselves managing breakout rooms, as long as they have 3 devices. For example, a computer, an iPad, and an iPhone. At that point, Stanley, you can be the host. And you create 2 rooms, one for your iPad, one for your iPhone, and you can join the iPad, you can join the iPhone, and so on. So knowing how to manage breakout rooms is very important. If you are interested, you can find those tutorials, or you can take my training or someone else training, but someone has to do it. And certainly you do not want the parties to get nervous because the mediator doesn't know what's going on. Does that answer your question, Stanley? Or?
Sure. I guess I need to figure out how to take one of your classes, I guess, so I could have access to the tutorials. I mean, I managed mediations, Zoom mediations without those by simply actually having people leave the main room and I recontact them at a certain point and bring it back. So I've done it, I've managed, but the actual breakout room.
Yeah, Giuseppe, if I can.
I haven't been able to
Go ahead,
master that yet.
Yeah, just real quick, Stanley. So the place to set them up is you go into your settings. So the step I do is I open up the Zoom. I go to home. I click the advanced settings. Then I close that. I go to that advanced settings page, and that has all my settings in it. One of those will be to click pre-assigned breakout rooms. You can click
Okay.
that. Okay. It will then let you, underneath that, you can click create. And it will take you to a screen where you can create breakout rooms. You click the plus, breakout room 1, you go over to edit, you name that room, and you put in the email address of each person that you want to put in that room if you want to pre-assign. And then when you're done establishing all your breakout rooms and all the pre-assigned people to them, you can click save, and then you can save your meeting, and that will be part of it. Caveat. I don't know why Zoom does this. Maybe it's just me, but it'll say on there, this is now going to be your setting from here on out because you've done it in settings. But there's a line at the end of it that says, hey, if you don't want this to be your setting for future, click revert setting. Two things can happen. One, when you open your Zoom meeting, you might get the breakout room set up from your last Zoom meeting because that was the setting that's still functioning in there. Or you get none at all. That's okay, because as long as you've enabled your breakout rooms, you can click the breakout room icon at the bottom and you can create them. But I agree with you that Zoom's breakout room setup is its least pleasing and effective and user-friendly aspect. Once you've got them set up, they're really easy to use. And it's actually easier to set them up either right before the meeting or at the beginning of the meeting. Click the breakout rooms, create them. You've got your people on there. You can assign them pretty quickly. You can do it in like 2 minutes, unless you got a whole bunch of parties.
All right. So let me ask if there are more questions. And I hope that you know. Oh, go ahead, John. Can you unmute yourself?
Yes, I will. Thank you, Giuseppe. And again, your presentation's terrific. I've been at many of your presentations over the years, and I'm always learning more things. So this is good. And I also mentioned to Stanley and others, Zoom constantly is updating. So you want to make sure you have the latest software I would download. I just, like today you're seeing, I'm trying out the blurred background. That's a new setting that came out apparently over the weekend. It's there for the video, but you got to download for that. But I was curious, when you were talking about knocking, when you want to enter a room and you don't want to disturb particularly the lawyer and the client, how do you knock? Do you text, phone? Do you send a private chat? What's your preference?
My preference would be to know in advance the attorney's cellular number. So you know in advance who is going to be in each room. And then I can either text them or call them. For example, if John, you are in a breakout room, I will call you and say, John, this is Giuseppe. I have something to tell you and your client. Is it okay to join you? And you can say, no, now, come back in 10 minutes. But I think that knocking on the door, regardless of how it's done, whether it's done by text or by phone, is just a respectful and decent thing to do. Because, I mean, we all been teenagers. How many times when in the world we like that our parents, opened the door of our room and barged in? So it has nothing to do with Zoom. It has to do with good manners. So that would be my answer to you, John. Now, as you just said, John.
Giuseppe, can I offer one more real quick one?
Sure.
John, if you're in a situation where people in a room are discussing something, they're going to come up with a position and offer something like that. So you're waiting for them to be ready for you. there's an icon on there that says ask for help. If they click
Right.
that, you can go directly into their room. I use that a lot. It's very effective. It also makes you in mediation position people to be moving toward decision-making and terms so that they signal you when they're ready for you rather than you trying to manage when you're ready for them. I found it much more effective and cost-effective,
Right.
that approach.
So those are two ways. One is knocking on the door by calling someone. The other one is what Chuck just said, is by asking the people that when they want to talk with the mediator, they click the button, ask for help. A third option is to use a broadcast message. So the online mediator says, "This is John. I'm going to check with Chuck in 5 minutes, and I'm going to check with Brian in 15 minutes." So, all right, now that hopefully you have a better sense how everything works and the tasks that need to be carried out, let me give you some advice on if you need more information. To begin with, if you have a Zoom account, free account or pro account, and the difference being that with a free account, you can have meetings up to 45 minutes. With pro account, you can have meeting of any duration. But in any event, if you have a free account or a pro account, you can sign up for some Zoom free webinars. I think one lasts 30 minutes, the other one lasts 45 minutes. Now, webinars are exactly webinars, which means that there is a presenter, and you can learn how everything works. So that's one option. The other option, which I mentioned, is to look up on YouTube. There are many tutorials about YouTube. There are hundreds of tutorials. Okay. The other option is sign up for some training if you're interested. My training is hands-on 101. It can be either for attorneys or mediators. It can also be for admin staff if you decided that you rather have someone on your staff manage Zoom, so you can only take care of your job, which is the reason why you were hired. The last recommendation is to use a video conferencing software as often as you can, especially so you can use them with your friends, with your families, but also with your clients, especially when you're about to send them a long email. So you run the risk that whatever you say, the person reads your email, understands something completely different. And when the person answers you, you try to clarify what you asked in the first place, and that person try to ask again. So my recommendation would be, whenever possible, try to have a video conference instead, okay? Because video conferencing, I think, is the second best option than in-person meeting, okay? And it is important to be clear, not only what the person or you are about to say, but how you are saying it. And that is certainly missed with the email. And for example, imagine that we are on the phone, right? And I'm on the phone with Chuck, and this is my watch, okay? And while Chuck is talking to me, I say, but I'm watching my watch, right? So there are some signals that are easier to pick up when you are face-to-face online rather than by text, by email, or by phone. Okay, now unless you have other questions, let me see if there are questions.
Actually, I would have another one,
Go
Giuseppe.
ahead.
For screen sharing, my experience is I think participants can screen share and still see everybody else. They can do a split screen.
Yes.
But when you're hosting, you don't get the split screen unless you're using dual monitors. And
Yeah, that's correct.
that's what I'm using right now for teaching, and it's just more complicated. And I just wonder,
that's-
if you
yeah.
talked about having people send you the documents, and my concern would be that if you do that, you may lose your view of the participants. And I wonder,
Right. Well, it is important that while you or someone else is sharing the documents, whatever they are, you are able to, to see the participants
yeah,
at the same time. Now, let me. Oh, by the way, the mediator can decide whether to allow participants to share documents or whether to disallow them. Okay, Chuck, you have experience with dual monitors, right?
I do. I highly recommend them for a lot of reasons.
Does it work for you?
It's fantastic. I can get gallery view and speaker view, so I have both right now.
Okay.
I can put the screen share on the speaker view side and still see gallery view. I can watch everybody while I have documents up and showing. It's a great tool and resource, and it's worth the $100 and something to get that second monitor or whatever it is.
Okay, yeah, thank you. All right, so if it's okay with you now, I'd like to give an example how to share and annotate information, how to share a picture, how to share documents, and how to share a video. And Brian, it's not necessary for you to do anything. Perhaps I can manage. Okay, hold on a second. Okay, so now I'm sharing a picture of a car accident, okay? And I'm using the annotation tools to draw your attention to this passerby or to this bus stop or to this tree. I'm using a laser pointer, but I could also use, for example, an arrow, okay, or something else. It doesn't really matter. Okay, the whole point is to make it easy for people to understand what is it that they're looking at, what is it that they want to discuss. So let me share a landlord-tenant agreement. It's exactly the same way. You open the document, you share it, and then you spotlight. So, well, let's talk about the fixed term agreement. Let's talk about the rent. Let's talk about the form of payment and so on. Let's talk about security deposits and so on. So it's very simple. You or an attorney opens whatever information they want to share. They share it, and they can use the Zoom annotation tools, to draw everybody's attention to whatever they are sharing. Likewise, I can share a video, okay? For example, in a car accident case, there could be a video. So this is the video, and I'm going to share with you. Okay, was quite dramatic. Okay, and finally, if, for example, the mediator wants to write up the memorandum of understanding, okay, I can open a word processor document on my computer, okay, And I can type party one will do something by, okay, and party two will do something else by, and if whatever, then whatever. So it's very simple. Typically, as you know, the mediator or someone else has some boilerplate, you know, or template they can fill out. Any feedback so far about what you've seen? I mean, if you want to, we can do the breakout rooms, but there's no point in doing them if you know already how it works. Are you interested to see how breakout rooms work, or?
I've got another question.
Go ahead.
Right, so both to Giuseppe and I mean, maybe even I'm looking Chuck, Catherine, and Jeffrey. What kind of lighting system are you using? Because I'm using a big zoom light. Sometimes I use the spotlight, but I tend to get the halos more often, and none of you seem to be having that much. So I'm wondering whether you're using two lights, because presentation is very important.
Just fine. John is fine. I have a ring light and I had turned it on before and now it's off. I have a green screen and so I don't have artifacts.
Yeah.
I think if you don't have a green screen, you're going to have artifacts. It's going to cause a little crazy. But you know, I'll turn my ring light on again and I'll show you the problem.
Well, I know, because I get a halo with green screen too. I'm not using it right now, but that's the hardest thing, and you starts getting a little weird. Giuseppe, yours is always looking good, and
yeah,
Jeffrey,
so
I can kind of see individual hairs, which I think is no, that's actually my test.
My age.
No, not the color, but just you can see the strands, because that's the test. Because when Zoom takes that picture, whether especially when you're in artificial background, it kind of it's a strange Photoshop photo. It's like a helmet sometimes. So I'm just kind of wondering, you guys are doing
I'm just in an office with fluorescent light above.
Okay, all right.
I don't have any of the I don't have artifacts at all.
Yeah.
But if I have my glasses on,
I see it. I see your light.
Yeah.
No, I see your light. It's a way of spying. It's a way of spying with people who have glasses. It's good to be able to look without glasses because people can't tell. What do you use, Giuseppe? And are you using a laptop?
I'm using a virtual background.
Virtual background.
Yeah.
But what kind of a lighting? Nothing.
I have a lamp next to me.
Yeah, okay.
If I want, I can turn on.
Yeah, I see the difference.
Lamp.
Right. Okay.
Nothing major.
Right.
And I can see Jeffrey's on the beach. Jeffrey, are you on the beach?
I'm off the mokes. I just paddled.
Right. Don't
Your
get computer wet.
your image is very crisp as well.
Yeah.
It was a picture I took years ago, and I like it. So, thank you.
Yeah,
I do have a different question, if I may.
Of course.
So, is there do you ever have them the parties sign a settlement agreement, and if so, at the end, and if so, how do you best facilitate that?
Well, you have, if you have, say, two parties,
Or confirmation.
if you are the mediator, right?
Yes.
You have a mediator, you have two parties, let's say two attorneys, right?
Yes. Yes.
So the decision number one, who is going to write up the settlement agreement? And the attorneys can say, oh, we will take care of them. We will take care of the settlement agreement, right? And second is, once the agreement is typed,
Yeah.
written, how are the participants going to sign it?
Right.
Are they going to use a digital signature software? Or are they going to sign it some other way? My suggestion is for the mediator to decide together with the parties how we're going to sign this. What is the simplest way? Okay, but I don't think that signing the settlement agreement should be a big deal. I think that reaching an agreement would be the focus. Whether, for example, some people are okay with a digital signature. Yeah, DocuSign, exactly. There are several software. Like one is called DocuSign. The other one is called the Sign Now. There are some apps that are free of charge. How the parties sign an agreement is something that the mediator has to discuss. I have a message here, 5 minutes left. So let me see, before I forget, first of all, I hope that this overview has been useful. Okay, so now you have a better sense. And this is my contact information, 808-383-4117. My email, virtualmediationlab@gmail.com. And this is my name. Unless you know it already, Giuseppe means Joseph in Italian, because as you can hear, I'm Italian. So, all right. Has this been useful to you? I mean, was it worthwhile?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. All right. I'm glad to hear that. So, Brian, how are we doing with time?
We're good. We have
We're good. All
3 more
right.
minutes. Yeah.
Any final questions, feedback, suggestions?
Yeah. One thing, if I may, let me add. 3 years, maybe more ago, I had a mediation coming up the next day. People on the mainland, parties, attorneys, found out Giuseppe trains in Zoom. I got it online. He came down, installed it, walked me through it in less than an hour. I did it. They had parties in Oregon and attorneys in California and all kinds of stuff. Probate to settle the case. I've been using Zoom ever since. Giuseppe offers both short training sessions and longer training sessions. The best investment you'll ever make. And then, like he says, just practice it, do it. It's like playing a musical instrument. The more you do it, the better you get. The things I indicated earlier about pre-setting and pre-assigning for breakout rooms, I still don't know the answer to how you avoid that, but Zoom support is pretty good. It's just they're so swamped now.
Right.
They've gone from a few million users to hundreds of millions of users, literally. So if you bought Zoom stock a year or two ago, you're looking good. Giuseppe, you're the master of this stuff.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I've been using Zoom since 2013, I think. I actually was one of their case studies because nobody heard of Zoom at the time. And they even sent me a free coffee cup, which unfortunately I cannot find. But
Yeah. One other point, there are some entities, some insurance companies, some state and other government agencies that heard about Zoom bombing a long time ago. They haven't updated their information or know how good Zoom security is now. It's way better, but they still veto Zoom. If you got to use something else for mediation, the best one I've seen is Legaler. There's a guy named Simon Boehm, Boehme, who has been hired by Legaler. He's a trained mediator. He's a tech master. He's really good at this stuff. And so he's doing for Legaler what Colin Rule did for Zoom years ago. That's why they got breakout rooms and screen sharing and all this good stuff. BlueJeans offers WebEx. I don't like very much, especially for breakouts. GoToMeeting is way behind.
So, and a tip I learned from Don Philbin, a Texas mediator, which about the bombing is, Zoom bombing, is you set up your breakout rooms, and as soon as everybody signs in, you move everybody into breakout room 1, and the Zoom bomber can't get in there. Then you can have all the rest of your stuff without a problem.
Are there really, is Zoom bombing continuing? I mean, I'm on Zoom sometimes 5 hours a day, and I've never
No, it
even-
is. It is because a major outfit just last week had to stop their webinar because they got Zoom bombed.
Okay,
And see, the problem is, depending on how you set up your settings, Giuseppe's early points about host control, look at your settings very carefully to make sure that you control everything that you don't want to give away.
right,
Because everything you give away control of gives that access.
okay,
Right.
Even if it's screen sharing or something like that. Hackers are looking for an access. Anything you open up to other person's control allows that. At least that's what I'm told. I have no clue.
okay. Yeah, I mean, being on Zoom so much, I can say that at first it was a little challenging, but then I'm on it so much and sometimes like all day. And I think just the more you do it, the better. So I think that's the
Yes.
best way to learn.
Yeah, in terms of security, there are several layers. One is, for example, the waiting room. The other one is the password. The other one is the online registration, so that people have to register beforehand, before they receive the link. Yeah, I think Zoom has made a lot of improvements, and probably there's still some work to be done. My sense is that if you take the recommended precautions, it's safe enough to do our job. But that is my personal experience.
Not only
All
that,
right.
Zoom has a new, much higher encrypted version out, zoom.us.gov, which courts and government agencies are picking up. And in fact, both state courts and federal courts here, which were with WebEx, are increasingly switching back over to Zoom because it's easier to work with. It's sufficiently encrypted. If you're a mediator, use different numbers for each Zoom meeting. Don't use your personal Zoom meeting for all your mediations,
Right.
because it means somebody who gets that may be able to enter through that. You can also close your meetings once you have everybody in there, and then
Right.
nobody else can get in.
Right.
So Zoom's come along pretty well. If you know what you're doing, you should not get Zoom bombed, but it happens.
Yeah, bombers recently have been looking for more high-profile meetings to bomb. So I don't think we're that attractive anymore. They'd rather hit a Harvard webinar with 300 people, than somebody's private thing.
Hey, Ben, I'm offended now. No longer a target.
And that's exactly right. And in terms of document signing, there's some free and very cheap ones out there. Ben noted that Adobe now has it too. Adobe charges for everything. So plus some people have had some problems with different versions of Adobe Flash causing problems on their computer stuff. So I don't know if it's cheap and it's easy and it works. But underneath, quite frankly, as a mediator, I prefer to have people drop a document, email it to each other. We can put it up on the screen and go through it, and then put the responsibility on the attorneys to get their clients' signatures.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you again, everybody, for inviting me. I hope this has been useful. And I wish you a pleasant rest of the day then. All right?
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Giuseppe.
Bye. Aloha,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye. Bye.
Aloha.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.